So I guess we'll just start off with Gayle Letherby's pre-recorded video. Are you in control, Tim?
Hello, my name's Gayle Letherby and my presentation's called Hair Today. Hair today, hopefully not gone tomorrow. Crowning glory, luscious locks, Rapunzel's saviour, Samson's downfall. To cut, colour, curl and comb, to braid, cream or shave. For fashion or political statement, much, much more than a bunch of keratin. And what of my own thatch, trestles, locks, barnet fair, blonde to brown to various, now a natural grey, silver, or my auntie's the one with the white hair, a 7-year-old friend said recently, introducing me to some of her schoolgirl chums. Always thick, like your dad's, said my mum. No fear of thinning here, the hairdressers agreed. All good. Until a couple of summers ago, when first I noticed hairs on my hands, when I so much as touched my previously fulsome headful, as I say, hopefully not gone tomorrow. I worry it's a reaction to medication or some bodily changes as yet undiagnosed, but a trip to the doctor in late 2019 and a hormone test shows nothing amiss. Have you been stressed about anything lately? The GP asks. Where to start? The state of it all. Climate change, Brexit, money for wars but no pay rise for the NHS, living in a beautiful sea-surrounded county which is yet the first or second poorest in the country, depending on which report one reads, not to mention Northern Europe, the bunch of horrors that are I refuse to say our, UK government, the struggle for something better whilst observing and personally experiencing attacks on the left. As a related aside, I've become somewhat attracted and addicted to Twitter in recent years, and although I've networked, made friends with and been supported by many like-minded others, I've attracted a fair number of online insults too. Some of you know this if you've listened to my musings previously. But before I go on, and just to say, I can categorically state that Jeremy Corbyn did not make my hair fall out. But as he's been blamed and doorstepped for almost everything else, why not for my own current personal follicle distress? Whatever the reason or reasons, it seems hair loss is a likely part of my life story from now on. There are weeks when it doesn't seem so bad, and then I notice the precious grey, silver, white strands on my t-shirt or cushion, and off, literally, it comes again. My photos chart my relationship with hair, along with my relationships with loved ones, past and present. There's the school photo taken the day after I took the scissors to my fringe. There's the pile of hair in the sink a month or so into the first COVID-19 lockdown, when I could stand the straggle no longer. My first wedding perm, my blonde baby locks, the various lengths, short and cut into the neck, long and flowing, ponytails and more. The tidy, the windswept, and all in between. Then, of course, there are the hair-raising experiences not captured, or at least not evident in a photograph. The 2-3 times when working as a nursery nurse that I caught nits along with the other nursery inhabitants. The reason for the first significant haircut, my plaits sticky from falling in the school custard yet again, my tears at the brushing out of tangles after a wash and dry. That bob saved my mum hours. My dad wasn't pleased. He got over it. And it grew again. The political horrors I mentioned just now, that literally do make me want to tear my hair out, although I'm much gentler towards it, much more respectful of it than I once was. It's nearly 18 months since my last trip to Cutting Edge. I cut my mum's hair once, and on her next trip to the salon, the woman holding the scissors this time asked somewhat reproachfully, "Who cut your hair last?" "My daughter," said Mum. "Your daughter's not a hairdresser, is she?" was the reply. I used to cut my late husband John's strawberry blonde, once of vibrant ginger, hair too. But I used a hair razor to achieve his preferred number 4. He did his beard himself, and it's fair to say that the tool took the strain and not much skill was required. Still, since that first lockdown home cut, I've managed to learn well enough. I know I'm not a professional, but it'll do. It's okay. Isn't it? Well, isn't it? Like many women, and men I guess, I have mixed feelings about sitting in the hairdresser's chair. The pain in the neck whilst leaning back to have your hair washed and all the curlers or foils pulled out. The sitting for hours and hours whilst it's permed, highlighted, full head coloured, cut, dried. I've been through the whole caboodle. The froofing, as a friend recently described it. And yet, the pleasure from the pressure of the head massage, delivered by trained, powerful fingers. Bliss. And then there's the talk. I know some don't like the chatter, but mostly I have done, especially when I've got to know my stylist beyond the perfunctory. I remember real care and kindness following the deaths of John and my mum, and whispered shared confidences about paying conditions, in addition to the essential, when next are you going on holiday? What are you doing for Christmas? Discussions. All memories now. There are other hair memories too. Who'd have thought, well, not me until now, that I would, chart my autobiography in this way. One precious recollection, as I near the end of my hair story to date, the time I was out with my mum, when whilst waiting for a bus together, I sit on a shop step and she leans down to stroke my head, my hair. We were always physically affectionate, my Dorothy and I. Remind me to tell you of the time she was washing my back in the bath, and then, before I stopped her with a laugh, she began to wash my face too. I was 51 at the time. Back to our bus stop exchange, more than 20 years earlier. Mum stroking my head, my hair. I'm tired, and under her soft touch I could doze off, even though the step is cold and hard. That is until she stops short and with some shock in her voice exclaims, "Goodness, you're going grey. I must be old." Well, if it keeps on falling out, I'll go for a number 2 and learn to live with it, I told the GP the day I went to the surgery and not the salon to discuss my hair. Part resignation, part bravado. 2 years on, and my head's still covered, although it's not just because of my slightly tender left ear that I appreciate my woolly hat from early autumn through late spring. Who knows where I'll be, what I'll have left in 5, 10 years' time. Hair today, hopefully not gone tomorrow.
I am here to honour a personal request by Bessie for a lament to accompany her final journey. Stepping out along the soft, silent carpet, the coffin on my left, time changes its quality and becomes suspended. I draw a periphery for myself and my instrument, claiming my territory in response to the wide open space. Set apart, intimate, I create a haven for both body and air to settle. Breath accompanies a search for connection between bow and string. Poised and ready, the sound emerges plain and true in its matter-of-factness. It speaks a story in inflected utterances, simple yet crafted. I find myself coaxing particular nuances, directing colours and shaping familiar sounds into new discoveries. I hear the music both from within and without, my diaphragm resonating with sound. I am here, in the moment, present to myself and to the possibilities of my instrument like never before. Arriving home later that evening, gestures lingered in the muscles and sinews continued to vibrate as my fingers remembered the actions. My husband, bearing witness to the performance, spoke of poise, mastery, exactitude, control, and spaciousness. My own memories mingled with his words, and for once I knew them to be true. I said, "Yes, that is how it was." I had experienced a moment of indwelling. Paul Harrison, considering Levinas's understanding of dwelling, describes the concept as a place from, by, and within which I am free to act, and within which everything is at my disposal, a site where I can. That spring day back in March, I encountered self-authority and found myself at a site where I could. In so doing, I recognized that a part of me was stitched back together, and it led me to retrace my body story in relation to my professional instrument. As a child of 9, I was excited at being told I had passed a school oral test, allowing me to start playing the violin. I distinctly remember stroking the plush but worn blue velvet fabric lining the case and breathing in the lingering sweet yet putrid aroma of old crushed rosin hiding in its folds. At home, I soon became aware of the resistance that was displayed as I began exploring the capabilities of my new instrument. I associated my parents' request that I went up to my bedroom to play with a sense of being banished, of having somehow transgressed. These deep-seated feelings remained with me throughout my professional life. As I practiced the violin in the solitude of the mirror, a vigour and a determination developed in my bowing action, born from an indignance to show them downstairs. Donald Winnicott's discourse on the role of the mirror as substitution for the mother's face during the development of emotional security is significant, as I reflect on the emptiness of encountering myself in the mirror. The mirror had become an object to be looked at, but not to be looked into. I paid no physical or emotional attention to my reflected self. I had wished to be celebrated, to be seen, and to experience a shared joy. I was, clutching the violin's neck, clamping it between jaw and shoulder, transferring tension from my own belly and ribs to those of the instrument, thus compromising its potential resonance. Moshe Feldenkrais, a visionary scientist who pioneered the field of mind-body education and therapy, writes in his book, The Potent Self, that childhood security is often bound up with living to conform. Moving outside these boundaries results in anxiety, which manifests itself primarily in clenched fingers and lower jaw, and a lowering of the head. Adopting such somatic habits, a process that sociologist Mildred Blackster calls sociobiologic translation, was familiar to me. The emotional script of my life was being sent underground, and the sound of the violin used to drown it out. As the years passed, home life became more challenging. The carpeted space between wardrobe, desk, and bed became a place of refuge to which I would increasingly retreat with the onset of my father's mental ill health. Fearful of footsteps on the landing, I would suck the air into my lungs and hold, creating an oasis of calm within my thorax, my barely perceptible breath dampening my presence on my side of the door. In her book, Music Asylums, Tia Denora defines the word asylum as shelter, safe space, place for living and flourishing, room in which to create, play, and rest. Not unlike the I can site of a dwelling, it carries a sense of retreating, what Denora calls removal. Her concept incorporates the idea of regrouping and a recovery of self. For Denora, music itself, as an agent of adaptation, negotiation, innovation, and expression, offers asylum. She presents a model wherein refurnishing, engaging with and modifying the world, can replace removal, getting away from the world. As my musical skills developed, they furnished a passport into a rich and flourishing community of like-minded musicians. My musical life ran as counterpoint to home life. Rehearsals during school break times, after school, Friday night youth orchestra and Sunday school band. But all this activity did not change my somatic reality and awareness. A contracted muscular and respiratory system and a hypervigilant existence resulted in a tightly felted organism that was never far from pain. My lack of interest in physical exercise and of the body's movement capacity led to a stark picture of a young adult engaged in an activity whilst devoid of an understanding of its physical nature. In her enlightening book, What Every Violinist Needs to Know About the Body, Jennifer Johnson states that violinists, unlike dancers or athletes, rarely use movement vocabulary when asked to describe video footage of their professional counterparts in action, favouring relational words such as communicating and expressing. Johnson suggests that little attention is paid to the physicality of playing the instrument, since professional violinists do not appreciate that they earn their living through moving. The Swiss pedagogue Émile Jacques Dalcroze created an approach to music education that placed the body and its movement at the centre of the learning. He devised a thorough and complete system that sought to integrate the body's communication network and enliven the senses through sound itself by capturing the musical imagination. With improvisation at its core, an interplay between constraints and freedom runs through the method, like a golden thread, not dissimilar to that of Feldenkrais. After 9 years as a professional violinist, I happened across Dalcroze rhythmics. The encounter was to transform my life. It marked the beginning of a journey into awareness and facilitated openings into so many other encounters. It offered a new way of looking at the world through a wider lens, enlarging my sensory perception. Lately, through very challenging personal circumstances, my body has been present to me. I have been able to tend to it, to sense its needs for reparation, restoration, and, borrowing from Denora, for refurnishing. The act of stitching, both practically and metaphorically, has offered me a means of homecoming. Exploring the Aboriginal concept of being in country, Ainsley Yardley considers the idea of self as place and of coming home as a returning to one's creative self. In country also holds a spiritual and a communal dimension, both of which have particular resonances for me. Yardley sees the creative moment as a territory and an emerging place that we enter into that exists in time and space. This was indeed the experience afforded me at Bessie's funeral, an experience that wove a few more stitches into life's tapestry.
Thank you, Bethan. Catelijne Coopmans is my suggestion.
Yeah, it's Catelijne.
Catelijne, sorry about that. Effort, writing the perfectionist body. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Bethan, for your presentation. There was a lot of resonance in that for me. And I also wanted to thank Sue Walters, who's here, for suggesting that I might find resonance with this community. You're the reason I'm here and talking today. So I will share my screen. The writer Anne Lamott has warned that perfectionism, quote, will keep you cramped and insane your whole life, end quote. If you're tempted, the message is, let go of it as soon as possible. In this presentation, I want to touch in with what such a flat, don't go there, does not account for. The desire for beauty, meaning, and generosity that finds expression in this compulsion. My way of entering is through a body autoethnography. It's my body's memories and shaping in relation to writing that I want to foreground. This first scene is from the late 1980s, early 1990s. I almost don't want to say anything about this picture. Just invite you for a moment to imagine you are her, the young me, sitting there, taking on this shape, doing writing. Imagine also the sensuality of the scene, the contact of fingers with keys, eyes with letters, skin with balmy summer's air, the smell of corrector fluid, a moment away. In 2009. By this time, I'm an assistant professor at a university in Singapore. Before coming to Hong Kong to this party, I've submitted the final version of the main article I wanted to publish based on my PhD thesis. It's taken 4 years to get here and countless rewrites. I've retraced my steps and found a better way with this paper so many times. The final stretch was intense. Home alone, my husband already at the financial investors conference in Hong Kong that was to put on this party. I allowed myself to get drawn into the minutiae of my text one more time. Seeing, knowing, ethnography, philosophy. The topic is seeing through to the other side, and I am in love with where this long ride took me. The weird rightness of it. I want to finish, but I let myself surrender one more time to this thing that's bigger than me, promising a little more rightness right around the corner. Till the minute I have to go to the airport, I'm at work. I know it is disproportionate. Sometimes laughter erupts in me about the excess, the ridiculous lengths I'll go to. At the party, one of the fanciest I've ever been at, I get drunk on champagne, black out, and embarrass my husband by vomiting in public. My body remembers this double excess. First the writing, then the drinking. But also something else. A moment of looking in the bathroom's mirror while waiting for my turn at the sink. Seeing the faces of what I imagine to be models, checking their appearance before they'll go back in. What hits me with a force that can still make my breath stop now? The strangeness of fitting right in. In this light, in this dress, with this makeup, right here, right now, after writing to the limit, I could pass for a model. It's like I didn't pay for all that effort. Got my beautiful article free, not a scratch on me. No one would suspect. My body's covering for me. Elaine Scarry's lecture on beauty and being just starts with the assertion that beauty prompts a copy of itself. It fuels the desire to make more and more so that there will eventually be enough. Staring is the simplest manifestation of how we place ourselves in the path of beauty, because it multiplies the moment that we keep something or someone beautiful in our sights. There is something that floors me as I stare at myself in the mirror. Elation, but also grief. My body gets drunk quickly that night, and the aftermath is awful. The third scene. Of course, I do pay for all that effort. Years and years of contorting my legs and hampering blood flow, of hunching forward, of narrowing my eyes and delaying breaks for the sake of just a little more, aren't gonna go unregistered. In the autumn of 2014, prompted by seeing my posture in a side-angle photograph, I start Pilates, one-to-one lessons once a week together with home practice. I'm no longer an assistant professor now. That journey ended quickly because I wasn't publishing enough. But I have a wonderful new job to pour my efforts into: teaching, curriculum development, writing. Starting Pilates, I find out something quite devastating. My body is a difficult case. The more my trainer analyzes my movements, the more she finds a cruel contradiction. Misdirected and overdone contraction of some muscles is keeping other parts of my musculature weak. Whenever I'm going all in, exerting force and feeling my strength, I'm gently told to stop and begin again. Not like this. You're over-efforting. Between too much and too little, I have to learn measured effort, balanced effort. I stick with Pilates for 4 years, attempting to correct myself. Sometimes it appears to work. Those shoulders are straightening a bit. Often the practice frustrates or bores me. It's like trying to reverse the tide. My body and my writing want different things. So for this last part, I will stop the sharing. And this is the last scene, Girona, Spain, 2021, from my journal on Friday the 16th of July, 2021. Today, in the morning shower, the getting dressed, a different register came. Different from the strident, buoyant re-owning of my body in the call with Mavis yesterday. What I heard myself say on that call moved me. The perfectionist's body as what is, what became. There being no way of hating it, of hating on it, of hating myself for it. Not needing to correct it or counter the effort that shaped it with more effort, or erase the efforts that shaped it in some Dorian Gray-like fantasy. But today, a different register. It's the sharp pain in my right buttock that wakes me up at night, that is the harbinger. I breathe and try to comfort my body, go into the pain with my attention. There's a nagging feeling, the guilt of the perpetrator. You did this. I think of the practitioner I should go see. Imagine how it would feel to have this place massaged, needled, pressurized. I'm thinking that I don't have time for this. In this other register, what comes is the knowing that going too far with my writing has brought vitality, yes, but also the opposite. The editor I work with now makes me see how freshness and power in speech are reduced when I'm too carefully considering each word. Anne Lamott isn't wrong to associate perfectionism's tidiness with, quote, held breath, suspended animation, while writing needs to breathe and move. It's the aches and pains, like the buttock, the legs, the shoulders, my right arm, that bring the grief in. Scary says the basic form of multiplying beauty is to hold still for it, so as to prolong its presence. The efforts of my writing body are also about holding still, the staring eyes, the held breath, the squeezed buttock, so that I can see and hear what's right and beautiful, and make more. The betrayal of that holding still comes in two flavors. The text may become devoid of life, and the body wakes up at night. My favorite thing is this, sitting here and scratching words onto paper. My grief comes when I picture getting up and moving my writer's body down the stairs, out the door, into the park with the dog. The grief of not always knowing how to inhabit my body when it's not writing. Are we friends? I sometimes think so. Yesterday I thought so. Today I'm prolonging the sitting here, dreading the moment I will get up and walk the dog. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can't remember how to pronounce your name, but that was beautiful. Thanks. And it's a reminder of how to remember your body when sitting on a desk every day. We'll just jump on to the last presenter, which is Kevin Ellis, a Vicar, fool, and PhD student. That intrigued me, I have to admit.
I live life on many boundaries, crossing different borders every day. I am a vicar and a fool. A fool is somebody who endeavours to tell the truth, no matter what the cost. I imagine that's what priests are supposed to do, at least in the beginning. I'm an Englishman who lives in Wales, dwi dysgu a siarad Cymraeg bob dydd. And it will be an interesting subject for another day to explore whether I'm a different person when living in my second language or not. But I live life on many boundaries, crossing boundaries. I'm almost, I would say, a hybrid. The hybrid is a figure that is rooted in post-colonial studies, I guess. On the edge, boundaried, insecure, with different meanings to different groups. Here I am at a public event in ancient medieval walls. It is here not because of any belief, but because it's the biggest public space. People gather to remember the Manchester bombing. I'm there just as a facilitator alongside politicians, community leaders, and friends. It's good to explore the fact that I'm a boundary person, that I cross and straddle many boundaries, because autoethnography is a discipline that straddles boundaries. That is the basis of many of its critiques. A misunderstanding that autoethnography does not fit into neat boundary packages, but is an explosive truth-telling methodology that holds individuals, institutions, and others to account, beginning with the storyteller themselves. There he is, my friend Gollum and Smeagol from the Two Towers in The Lord of the Rings. Gollum and Smeagol is somebody who does not know how to treat his hobbit companions. Is he going to get rid of them, or is he going to embrace them? Does he want the ring back, or is he there to help? And there you go, the Apostle Paul, the ultimate hybrid, Greek and Jewish. Strident, compassionate, and pastoral. I am somebody who juggles many things. I stand with the community when they need me to. I allow them my space. And sometimes I'm allowed to come into theirs. I listen attentively, even when I am stealing a child's ice cream. I drink wine at weddings. Many people come to my 15th century building to get married because it's cheaper than the 14th century castle down the road. They take God with a pinch of salt, but they like the fact that I believe in someone who turned water into wine. Although I tell them, sadly, I missed that class in Vicar Factory. I laugh and I cry and I embrace those on the fringes. But I sometimes wonder whether I will ever be fully embraced, because I bring God and the embarrassment of the divine with me wherever I go. Like little puddles of water, he or she is there. People come to me at the end and at the beginning, in the middle, when they're separating. They ask for blessing from Rev Kev, from a God they no longer believe in. But I'm not just a registrar licensed to take weddings. I do so as a priest. I'm not a social worker, youth worker, fundraiser. I'm not a community worker, replacement for a lack of funding, although I do all of that. If you're a priest, you do so for good reasons. But what happens when you're not allowed to bring those reasons in? That's a good question. In Wales, where I live, I am part of a protest group against the buying of second homes. I'm allowed to be there because I'm an Englishman who has become fluent in Welsh. I am a strange anomaly. And I begin my cries for justice from my sacred texts. Let justice flow like rivers and righteousness like a never-failing stream. And yet, within secular discourse, I am hushed, not allowed to say that. The token who is there. Boundary things are messy. Hybrid things are even messier as life is messy. When people remove my faith, they take my voice away. I open a council with a prayer so that people can argue in a sanctified way. I help people to remember their war dead. I am boxed. Autoethnography as a discipline has helped me to break free. It allows me to be known as I am fully known. And yet, as I read and engage with autoethnographers the world over, as I begin to write, I wonder whether the autoethnographic circle dance will exclude me eventually because my divine partner is excluded too. There you go.
Thank you, Kevin. And as a man who uses a pinch of salt, I think I would enjoy going to church with you.